guys, it's Madison and Riley, and welcome back to the second episode of the Cruel World podcast, where today we are talking about Rachel Hollis and her life.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
A lot of you guys requested that we cover Rachel Hollis, so we thought it would make for a really good second episode to do a deep dive onto Rachel Hollis, her life, her background, as well as how she became so interconnected with MLMs and their business practices.
From what a lot of you guys know, Rachel Hollis is just like your average, just like false motivational influencer, kind of like a Gary V in some sort of way, but more in like
or Tony Robbins, all those characters.
Mm-hmm. And just like in like a MLM type setting. From what we've seen, she's pretty good at pushing out like vague motivation and false positivity to make you feel better about like shaming people, honestly.
It feels like the popular girl at your high school who acts like they're such a good person and they do charity work and they go to church on Sundays. At the same time, they're calling people fat and they're gossiping and spreading nasty rumors. It kind of feels like Rachel Hollis is the adult version of that person. And we'll get into more of why we feel that way.
Yeah. So let's go straight into it. Now, we don't really have a problem with Rachel Hollis's platform, like her being an influencer, blogger, author even. We just have a problem with the fakeness that she projects onto other people. She pretty much just projects her own personal issues onto other topics, like through her speeches or her motivational videos, which we'll get into. It's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people have issues with Rachel Hollis and her teachings, but if you actually look deeper into it, at least we personally believe that a lot of her teachings are really just kind of projections of her own life and personal issues that are going on in her life. And so she kind of compensates for that by speaking about them indirectly through her books and her lectures, speeches,
whatever you want, classify them. And this is pretty much all we're going to get into. We've seen some videos where they just get a little bit too much into her personal life. Like, we don't really know Rachel, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys watching, except if it's Rachel Hollis herself,
don't know her life.
Yeah, we don't know a lot about her. We just know the background, basically, and that's the first thing that we're going to get into. The
facts that we can find. I personally, no shade to people who've covered Rachel Hollis, but talking about really sensitive personal issues like divorce, speculating on those issues, tearing someone's character apart, we'll talk about her, kind of fakeness and her hypocritical aspects of her, but to talk about very personal aspects and to really rip that apart is not something that we want to do here today.
Exactly.
So let's get into Rachel Hollis and her background first, to just kind of give you a brief picture of who she is, what her childhood was like, and how that kind of influenced or led into her career.
Right. Yes.
It is late at night. We are really not going to tell you the time because you guys will probably judge us.
Some of you guys will probably be waking up. That's how late we're up.
Yeah. All right. So Rachel Hollis says she was born and raised in Bakersfield, California, where there wasn't much going on in her life besides farming and truck driving and going to church. She was raised in a Pentecostal household, which is just one of the many sides of Christianity. For those who don't know, my husband grew up in a very Christian household. I didn't grow up in as much of a Christian household, so he has way more information on that.
Yeesh.
And her dad was the pastor or minister, whatever it is they're called in a Pentecostal church. I apologize. Church seemed like a huge part of Rachel's life. I would assume, of course, because she was a pastor's daughter, and she often references this point in her life throughout all of her work. She seems to contribute her dad as a pastor to a lot of the good in her life, as well as a lot of the bad in her life. She claims that having her dad care for other people often left her neglected and made her want to move out. Being from a small part of Bakersfield, everyone was like her, according to what she says. They all looked the same, were taught the same, talked the same, and all went to the same church. Which, of course, not having a good mix of diversity or different backgrounds and perspectives in your life is a breeding ground for what we see today with Rachel Hollis and a lot of people in MLMs. You kind of get this restricted mindset, and if you aren't exposed to things outside of maybe your viewpoints or your backgrounds or perspectives. Rachel Hollis claims this is how it was until she moved to LA. She received her high school education and left Bakersfield by her junior year in high school and moved down to LA at the age of 17. She went to an acting school to be an actress, which is interesting. I did not know that. Kind of makes sense. Her dad was I always think it's interesting when you look at someone's life story and how it leads up to what they're doing now. I mean, her dad was often performing kind of on a stage. I mean, he was a preacher. She wanted to be an actress. And if you combine both of those things, it kind of makes a motivational speaker. So,
yeah, you see a lot of it. Like from the videos that we see, she has the same act every time. And something funny that I've noticed is she claims she's from Texas. I mean, not from Texas, that she lives in Texas now. Mm-hmm. But every time she gets up and speaks in her like MLM conferences and whatnot, she always says this one thing where she says something like y'all or some like Texan phrase, and she corrects it and be like, oh, sorry, that's my Texas accent coming out. Every time I'll put a compilation up on the screen, and it's just...
and also listening for our listeners too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so funny because she was raised in Bakersfield, so to be like, oh, my accent's coming through. I'm so sorry. I'm horrible at accents.
What was that?
I just booped the mic. But to say that, it just feels really fake because you grew up in Bakersfield, California. You are not a small Southern belle. I mean, it's kind of funny. But anyways.
Just all part of the act.
Mm-hmm. So Rachel went to an acting school to be an actress and was attending this school until she was offered a full-time job in Miramax production company. And she took it. Miramax Productions is responsible for a number of classics, in case you didn't know, such as Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, and Scary Movie 2 and 4.
Just 2 and 4.
Just
that is
funny, actually.
Just not like 1, 3, 5. But hey, 2 and 4 are probably the best out there.
And I love Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill. It's just kind of sad because I don't know Quentin Tarantino as a person. There's been some really weird things that have come out about him, and it's definitely disheartening for Quentin Tarantino fans or people who are fans of his movies.
But Scary Movie 2 is probably the best out there of all the Miramax films.
I've never seen any of them.
Never seen the Scary movies?
I guess this Halloween we have to watch them.
Totally.
But anyways.
Scare me.
Anyways, one thing led to another, and she moved around from production company to production company as an event planner until she started her own event planning firm called Chic Events. I always want to say Chick Events.
I was about to say Chick.
Yeah.
That was me saying it. I would say Chick.
Now, Chic Events seem to be relatively successful, according to Bakersfield.com. It says
Reliable.
It says she led successful parties for a series of popular figures such as Bradley Cooper, Rashida Jones, and Al Gore. At this time, between her event planning in the early 2000s, she also met her boyfriend, who was kind of a flaky character, according to her book.
Brooke.
She looked into the brook, and
that's great.
He's a flaky character. Which honestly, that's always a red flag, number one. If you start dating someone and they're flaking on you.
And he's just like, oh, I can't make it. Oh, I got plans.
Not holding commitments. Yeah, run. So apparently her boyfriend would ghost her and just kind of be a douche to her and was full of himself.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, speaking that, like, we'll get into his job later. But you can kind of see that.
He'd flirt with other ladies as well. Okay, why? What? If we started dating and you flirted with other people, I would be gone so fast.
I was just like, hey, how you doing? This is my girlfriend.
I mean, depending on what relationship structure you choose to have, but with our relationship structure, if you were flirting with other people,
that's a no-go.
Yeah.
Fix my legs.
But this boyfriend, believe it or not, worked for Disney as a high executive, which brought home the big bucks, and they got married in 2004.
What a year.
Which, I mean, that's also what confuses me, is the way that she portrays her relationship. And, no relationship is perfect, but you do have to, we'll get into the timeline of what happens with her, but you do have to look at that and see if it's not even more so a reflection of reality, but also a reflection of what she's going through in this marriage, in this relationship, and her own struggles, and how she reflects on, their entire relationship when she describes it. It's all really interesting. About 4 years after she married her husband, Dave, Rachel kind of started to learn that blogging was just the right fit for her. She would post almost every day. She would post about everyday relatable things, including children's stuff, food, fashion trends. Rachel Hollis's blog really blew up when she posted a picture of her getting Bell's palsy, which I didn't know until a few seconds ago when my husband had to tell me what it was. But Bell's palsy is apparently a stroke of sorts that you get mainly during pregnancy. And she realized through her blogging on this kind of stuff that it motivated people, and that led to a community. That first post then led to more and more of her talking about postpartum depression or problems in her marriage, and Rachel just started to spill more and more tea on her own life. Rachel Hollis says that her intention from the beginning was that she would never share hardship she didn't know how to get through herself. Rachel said she would never talk about a hard thing just to talk about it, because that doesn't help anybody. I always think it's really interesting when people or influencers build a brand off of being relatable, especially when they start to blow up or get really rich and successful, and then that relatable brand just doesn't hold up as well anymore because they're driving fancy cars and living in big extravagant homes. But even thinking about Rachel Hollis, I think it's amazing to share stories of motherhood and things that people don't talk about that often that need more awareness, like postpartum depression. But I also think it's important to note that she married a really high Disney executive. She kind of lived a very sheltered life. So her life is only relatable to some, and those are usually kind of the demographic that fall for MLMs, is really who she's relatable to, who kind of relate to her lifestyle in a lot of ways. And that's a generalization. Of course, there's a ton of exceptions to that, but I think that's important to note. Sometimes relatable content can only be relatable to a very small few people who are privileged like Rachel and who grew up in an environment similar to her. And outside of that kind of bubble, her content doesn't hold up as relatable anymore. And we'll kind of react to and share some of those aspects that just really aren't relatable later on in this podcast.
Yeah. So a while later, when she was in this whole inspirational blogging scene, Rachel posted a picture of herself on Instagram in some beach in Mexico.
Relatable.
Yeah. I mean, remember when we were in Mexico and we posted pictures? We've never been to Mexico.
We didn't have a honeymoon. Eventually.
Thank you, Army. It's a good old DOD for you. But anyways, she posted this picture of her like post-birth, kind of have that belly fat going on. And her caption basically was saying that I have stretch marks and I wear a bikini. I have a belly that's permanently flabby from carrying 3 giant babies, and I wear a bikini. My belly button is saggy. Anyways, you guys get the idea. It's just talking about how she accepts her body and
which
whatnot.
Which is great.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I mean, good for her.
Mm-hmm.
But
if you apply that acceptance to all body shapes, all skin tones, all
right,
ethnicities, all genders.
not just her. But it's just like, just seems like her success was just one lucky stroke after another.
One lucky stroke.
One lucky stroke. One lucky. What?
Streak.
Oh.
I know where your mind's at.
Yeah. It just seemed like her success was just based after one lucky streak after another, But anyways, after posting this video, this was like her breakthrough, which pretty much just projected her career all the way up to the moon. And somehow it got a lot of attention. When her post about body positivity came out, that is when she figured that she could write a book at this time.
It's enough kind of publicity.
Yeah, you get that following. You have this event planning career with a bunch of rich people, rich husband.
Yeah.
You have your blogging scene with your Pinterest followers and Instagram and whatever blog websites you use. Yeah. What even is a blog website? I don't think I was in that era.
A little bit more obscure now. Because, there's just a lot of people who blogged kind of transitioned to like being an influencer and Instagram and all of that. But usually people had their own websites where they would make like text posts, blog posts about different things.
It'd be impossible to find.
All of our cooking recipes that we find
they're all on blogs.
Yeah.
Funny.
So that's an example.
We just made a roast yesterday.
Yeah, which I do also want to mention about the books. I've seen this time and time again where a lot of people just kind of don't really think of books as like a money-making opportunity. Like a motivational influencer will come out with a book and people think that it's this selfless act in some way of them like sharing their wisdom and knowledge. But
like, here's my secrets. Here's everything that you need to know about how to be successful.
Which, of course, it's always, there's a secret, but they never fully reveal the secret. And that's always the spiel with motivational speakers. But I will say books can be very, very lucrative.
Lucrative?
But I will say books can be very lucrative, especially when, it reaches a top selling or best selling, number or
totally
status. You can make a lot of money. It's not just, pennies. It is a lucrative avenue. And that's why so many people end up writing books. Even random influencers who have no business writing one will write a book, and it's for a reason.
Yeah, funny. Just like get up and write a book from posting a picture in Mexico. Hell yeah. Now, this isn't like too crazy of a success story, if you ask me. It's not like a rags to riches type story. It's more like a raised middle class, move away, marry a rich guy, and everything falls in the right place. If you ask me, her claim to fame isn't really that admiring, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, she had a lot of aspects that were definitely helpful. Her, background of what her father did, her acting studies, and then, of course, her husband, which I'm sure having, someone who's a high executive at least helps you with making the right business decisions, but that's also kind of offensive to say in itself now that I think about it, because, of course, it wasn't her husband directing her career. Like she made her moves. She wrote the book. She did all of this herself. There's no denying that. And I want to make that clear. That's not what I mean by this. I just mean that having support in your life and people around you who are knowledgeable in aspects that you're interested in helps a lot. I mean, it's the difference between success and failure. If you don't have a really strong support system, that can be really, really damaging. And I've seen that with a lot of my friends, with, a lot of people that we know in our life. Support is everything.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like a similar story to like Gary Vee. Gary Vee, he started with like $3 million.
Successful business.
Yeah, and he made it even more money, and he's telling people, "Oh, you need to go get rich." It's just like, dude, you were already rich to begin with, my guy. You were already rich to begin with,
Yeah, it just goes to show that we never fully know the full story of something and really how someone came to be where they are. And while 100% people gain success off of their own merit, they also, usually there's other influences involved that do help them get there. Now, if you look at Rachel's About page, she talks about her love for kids. She talks about coffee, so relatable.
Damn.
Her podcast channel, twinning, and her 4.5 million copy sold book, Girl Wash Your Face.
Hell yeah.
4.5 million. That is a lucrative.
It's a lot of books.
It's
a lot of hardback.
Avenue. Girl Wash Your Face is described by the Washington Post as mixing memoir, motivational tips, Bible quotations,
Hell yeah,
and common sense girl talk. It is a message of female self-reliance, best summed up by Hollis in the book as you and only you are ultimately responsible for how happy you are. Which I do like that message, but it's also okay to be sad sometimes. Like even today I posted on my Instagram that I was having what I call a down day. And I think sometimes you can be overall happy in life, but still feel down or sad sometimes, and that's okay.
I mean,
you shouldn't punish yourself for that too.
I live life by the motto from the Simpsons movie. Have you seen the Simpsons movie?
Yeah.
Where was it Homer? Yeah, Homer comes up to Bart after he just gets like a trash day, and Homer says to Bart, he's like, "Oh, this is the worst day." I mean, Bart says, he's like, "Oh, this is the worst day of my life," and Homer is like, "The worst day of your life so far."
Yeah.
I mean, I say that quite often.
Yeah.
It's kind of true.
Yeah, and I oftentimes think about, I think one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given was by my mom when I was like, I want to say 5 or 6 years old. And
you remember that?
Yeah, I remember it to this day because I live by it all the time. But there was this boy on the playground that was really mean to me to the point where it made me want to cry. And I remember my mom picking me up from, it was like, preschool playground. She was picking me up from preschool. And I was just wanting to cry, but I was so upset and I was trying to act strong and tough. And so I was like holding in, and she could see like how upset I was and how sad I was. And so she just looks at me and she says, "It's okay to cry." And she would say that throughout my life at certain times when I would want to cry, but was trying to hold it back, as she would just say, "It's okay to cry." And I apply that a lot of times. I think sometimes it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad, and letting yourself be sad and feel that emotion allows you to fully process it, So you can't just be sad and be like, it's up to me to be happy. I have to be happy right now.
Right.
I'm deciding to be sad. It's instead
it's
like
your fault. You're sad.
Yeah. Acknowledge it. Let yourself feel that emotion. That's my personal perspective, but I am not like a psychologist or anything. I've just found that most of my life. I'm not.
Damn.
I've lied to you. Just kidding.
I'm used to it.
Since being published, this book, Girl Wash Your Face, has been wildly successful, described as a publishing phenomenon.
Sure seems so.
And it was the second most popular book of 2018 on Amazon. Girl Wash Your Face is listed as a New York Times bestseller under the advice, how-to, and miscellaneous category. And it's also found in the Christian section. But after reading articles and quotes from it, it doesn't seem like it applies many teachings from Christianity at all. It's just kind of Christian by association because Rachel Hollis herself is Christian.
Yeah. I mean, like the most, like when you go under her like Amazon book page, it's under Christian novel or something like that. So
it's interesting.
Fun fact. Who's texting me?
I mean, she really banks off of multiple audiences.
That's awesome.
So, of course,
I'm so sorry.
So the book really banks off of multiple audiences. And I guess you can see how that would cause it to be successful, because someone who is Christian might see the book and become interested in Rachel Hollis. The thing that worries me is people from, her blog, from Instagram, from the self-help section, from the Christian section, could all become invested in her follow her journey, and then by her promoting all of these MLMs, they could become roped into that as well. I think that's an important thing to take into account when it comes to her sphere of influence.
Totally.
So the book is a 20-chapter book of 20 lies that Hollis has told herself.
It sounds so gossipy.
Yeah. Like the classic, I'll start tomorrow, or I am defined by my weight, where she talks about how she solved all of these conflicting problems. Because it's a Christian book, you expect a lot of Christian teachings, like talking about how
Gigi? My great grandma?
Like talking about how Jesus... I have to not laugh about that.
My great grandma's name is Gigi. So.
Like talking about how Jesus saved her life and how she praises God, but it's really not about that at all. Which, of course, there's nothing wrong with. It's just, why is this part of the Christian section? I don't know.
That's good. So this is kind of, I kind of see this book as like something equivalent to like, jeez. I see this book as like walking down the street and like catching up with your neighbor or like a friend or something, and like you guys having a good conversation and you say something that's really positive in your life, like, oh, I got a new dog, or something weird like that, or like, oh, I almost got in a car crash but everything is okay, and that person on the opposite, on that receiving end of the conversation, is like, oh, thank God, or like, thank the Lord, you know. Like you would kind of think that like, oh, you're a religious person, or you're some kind of person of faith, when in reality it's just a common saying nowadays. You know, you don't really have to be in like some practicing religion to say, oh, thank God or thank the Lord or something like that. I don't know. That's kind of how I see this book.
So would you say that this book, because Riley did a lot more research on this topic than I did.
I hate
for
this.
the podcast, he does mainly a lot of the research. So props for him on that. But
and the commenting. So if you think it's math and commenting, it's me, boys.
Sometimes it's
gals.
But yeah.
You can tell. I put a space before my period for anyone that's wondering.
But would you see this book as someone who adds a tiny bit of Christianity into the book to sell to that audience, or as someone who kind of sprinkles in a basic amount of Christianity because it's just, you know, how they are and what they've lived their life as?
It kind of feels like a mix of both. Like, of course, if you're like raised in a church, you always have like those classic Bible verses and sayings just like engraved in your brain. And she probably does a little bit of both. She knows that a lot of Christians will find this novel as appealing because it's kind of edgy. It talks about like
but still
intimate
Christian
activities, but it still says like Bible verses here
like
and there.
Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
And talks about how she's a pastor's daughter and whatnot.
I will say, to give props
me.
to Rachel, because I don't want this to just be all the negative things about Rachel, because there are positives, you know, that's just reality. I do think it's kind of refreshing to bring to the Christian audience kind of these ideas of body acceptance and talking about intimacy and all of that. I do think that's nice, and I think that's cool.
It's very nice.
Yeah. I also want to know, too, not only does she sell to a Christian audience and an MLM audience, but also I've heard that she sells to a military spouse audience.
Yeah.
And that a lot of military spouses.
Like military, religion, and MLMs all have a thing together.
Yeah. It's really interesting how all of those aspects are all connected. I think when I think to military spouses, I do think of people who are looking for community. And I think the same thing about MLMs and the same thing about churches, or that at least a community aspect is a huge aspect of Christianity and everything. And so it's funny. I think all of those aspects and all of the, you know, military spouse, Christianity, and MLMs, the main thing they have in common is this idea of community or friendships or being part of something. When, you know, maybe outside of those things, you wouldn't be a part of something. You
Totally.
might be a little bit more lonely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go on to the Amazon reviews of Girl Wash Your Face.
Girl, watch your face.
Watch your face. And read some of those, because some of the reviews are kind of entertaining, to say the least.
It's funny, when you look at it, like 80% of the book has 5 stars, 5 out of 5 stars. But when you go on to like the top reviews, they're all 1 stars. So let's go on to this post by ATX Girl, capital ATX lowercase girl. All right. So she says, I've been following Rachel Hollis for years, up until now. Wow. The way you go straight to the point here. Her message has resonated with me. As a lifestyle blogger, she produced great content, but her recent evolution into a self-proclaimed mogul. Skiing.
Good word.
Yeah, like it. Mogul just rolls off the tongue.
Reminds me of skiing.
Yeah.
The moguls.
Yeah.
Skiing. That's all I think of for some reason.
All I think about is skiing. Just kidding. Self-proclaimed mogul has bothered me for the last year. Unfortunately, Girl Wash Your Face is mogul Rachel instead of her previous likable self. Wow, it's a lot of shade going on there. The fake "hey y'all" language. Hollis may.
She comes from Bakerfield.
Yeah. She gets into this here. Hollis may have very recently moved to Austin, Texas, where I also live, but don't be fooled by her plastered on attempts at sounding down home. I can't pronounce that. She is simply great.
Emulating.
She is simply emulating greater authentic Texas writers, such as a bunch of famous Texas writers. She grew up in Southern California and most recently lived in Glendale.
Which I'm just like, why? I think that's her whole.
She's trying to catch that whole
of being relatable, and for some reason, this idea of being like Texan and have that
Christian
accent is more relatable to the audience she's selling to, but
Totally.
It's just not real at all. So it's not actually relatable. It's not legitimately, because it's not you aren't even relating to yourself, because you aren't the person you are claiming to be.
Stuff.
Anyways,
number 2, the nonstop humble bragging. She's a really good reviewer.
Yeah, that's so true. She
says, Rachel, you are productive and work hard. Guess what? You also have a full-time nanny, full-time housekeeper, and an actual mogul of a husband to bankroll your PR expenditures.
Yes. And also, can we talk about this idea of productivity? I mean, she explained it, or he, I'm not entirely sure the gender. It's not right to assume. But they explained so well the problem with this idea of I hustle, look at my productivity and how much I've accomplished. It's like, well, behind the scenes, you have a nanny, you have a successful husband who has that stability, why did I say that so weird, aspect where, because I think sometimes if you don't have a stable spouse, because I will say Riley is in the military and there's a stable income there.
Support the troops.
And having that has allowed me to start what I've started on YouTube and to explore that. If he wasn't stable in his income, I would be working nonstop at the jobs that I had before YouTube and wouldn't have an opportunity to explore this. So that's such an important aspect when it comes to success, and so many other aspects besides how hard you worked are important to dive into, or else you're kind of presenting this toxic idea without fully explaining the context of your success.
Totally. With number 2, she says, if your readers could afford to run a company and also not take a salary for 6+ years, I'm sure we all could be a mogul in our own way. Number 3, she talks about the dangerous non-expert advice. Hollis does not have a formal degree or certification of any kind beyond a high school diploma. She is 100% unqualified to give any advice in the areas of physical and mental health, relationships, trauma, and recovery. And life, wow, list keeps going. And life management. Marrying the only guy you've dated and having kids doesn't make you a relationship expert. It makes you a wife and mother. Losing weight and exercising doesn't make you a trainer or nutritionist. It makes you a person who has eaten well and exercised to be better at health.
They summarized really well kind of the problem with motivational speakers and how they talk about so many aspects of life that they're really not fully qualified to talk about. And people who really do follow these speakers or influencers will kind of believe whatever it is they say, even though they have no, reason to be giving this type of advice. I mean, I think personally what I have the biggest issue with regarding Rachel Hollis's content and what I've personally seen is when she talks about relationship advice, just because on top of her having no expertise or qualifications in that area, she also started with a really crummy sounding relationship with a really crummy sounding person, at least from her own account or record of things. So to be giving relationship advice off of the one person you dated who was flaky, blew you off, and flirted with other people, and you're telling people how they should
It's not how it
conduct
works.
their relationship, like,
Yeah.
I mean, even when we, probably in the future, we might talk about our relationship and things that we do, but it's still always from our personal account of things, to tell people how to operate a relationship when you yourself have very little experience and qualifications, and also might be projecting some of your relationship issues when you talk about them, which, of course we'll get into, that's just not right. It doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. Continuing off of number 3, it's just talking about like you don't really have any weight in giving advice or like telling people how to go about living their life with relationships or whatnot. Anyways, number 4 seems pretty interesting. It says the strategic Christianish positioning. This book is categorized under the Christian book section on Amazon and similar retailers. This is a tactic by the author and publisher to rank higher and make the New York Times bestsellers list. Those who have read the book have already noted the lack of actual Christian content. Rachel doesn't even thank God in the acknowledgement section. Damn. She did not thank God.
The big boy upstairs. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think
She does thank her nanny though.
if I think about it, if you don't have any Christian content, but you label something as a Christian book, is that also kind of excluding people of other religions to read your content and to find it helpful, because this is for Christians?
She went with her books. Her publisher is a Christian publisher, so that's probably how she got the leeway into.
I mean, that's strategic business wise, but it's also, I feel like, at the detriment to Christians and non-Christians.
It's like making a lot of money off of YouTube because you post educational children content,
No, if you even look at Jake Paul's content, he posts children's content. That's what his like technicality is, or at least was for a long time. He's recently kind of
because this stuff is revolting.
Yes, even when he had the very revealing or
I mean, he had
thumbnails and content, it was still categorized as children's content. I mean, and what that does is
an adult entertainer on his channel.
Yeah, so really what happens when you label things as children's content is YouTube thinks it's family friendly, and so it recommends it or pushes it out more. So, a lot of YouTubers kind of take that as like their advantage, and they,
that's
do
ridiculous.
A lot of children content that's really not children content.
Oh, that's so scandalous.
Yeah.
There's at least like 10 other reviews that basically say the same thing that ATX girl said.
Review is really well done,
for
sure.
Good job. This person, M. Evans, says, like so many other viewers, I wanted to love it. So many of my friends have nothing but praises for the book, so I bought it. Kind of that peer pressure into it from what I see. I've been disappointed from the start. I ended up feeling so annoyed that I wasn't able to finish the book. I felt like it was too much me, and humble bragging, as another reviewer pointed out. It does seem like that. I mean, I won't spend my money buying that book and reading it, but like from the reviews and blogs and stuff that
You've done a lot of research on the
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
It just really seems like, oh, look how I got my life together. And it doesn't really say how to get your life together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, I think that a lot of motivational speakers do this a ton, where they constantly talk about their own accomplishments, but I think that they do it intentionally as a way of establishing or building authority. Like, look at how much I've done.
Mm-hmm.
I am worth saying something. Because if you don't have a ton of credentials, you don't have a lot of authority established. The one thing you do have is your financial success or your life success. So you have to overtly state that and establish that, or else, you have no credibility. And so I think that's why a lot of motivational speakers like Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, people like that do that really often.
Mm-hmm. It's like saying what people want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
but they code it with saying, this is stuff you don't want to hear. Like, I hear that with Gary Vee all the time. It's like, I know you don't want to hear this, but you're going to die. And stuff like that. It's just like, that's exactly what people want to hear. They want that like little stinger.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be like, oh, that'll get my life together
true.
because I'm going to die one day. No, dude. Just no, stop. You were rich. You were rich before this, dude.
Yeah.
You would be stupid. You would be so stupid if you lost that $3 million and you didn't make it more money,
Yeah.
It feels
Which
like
people have done, but.
Yeah, but a logical person with that much wealth, would hire people to manage that money. I mean, it just seems like common sense, I'm not the most financially responsible person, but if you get $3 million, I'm not going to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an accomplishment what Gary Vee did, but he didn't come from nothing.
Yeah.
So Rachel's other publishings include Girl Stop Apologizing, Didn't See That Coming, and overall her books are just really jet puffed like a marshmallow, kind of full of nothing, nonsense, self-help books.
Well put.
When you read the contents of it, she talks about how you need to take control of your life, but she doesn't really explain how to actually do that because there's no answer to it. Some things you just cannot control.
Just
like
live your life,
2020. Yeah.
Jeez, for real.
Also, she kind of downplays some big mental health problems, and by kind of saying that everything that you do is your fault, which in some sense is true, but of course life is more complicated than that. Here is a perfect example of something that talks about nothing from her book, Girl Wash Your Face. If you are unhappy, that is on you.
What?
I mean, when you say stuff like that, you're just downplaying legitimate mental issues like depression and also legitimate reasons to be sad.
Yeah, it's just like if someone in your family like passes away, like I could just picture Rachel Hollis just like barging in like the Kool-Aid man being like, that's on you. That's why you're sad.
Yeah, I mean
you're the reason why you're sad about this.
If I was reading her book, I would be pissed off how she's kind of talking about herself and all of her accomplishments, but also being like, if you're unhappy, that's your fault. That's on you. Like, excuse me? Look at your life. When, I mean, I'm sure we all deal with hardships and everything, but her life is fairly privileged compared to a lot of others out there. And from her own account of her life, it doesn't seem like she's had very many hard times. So what do you mean I, can't be happy or if I'm not happy, it's my fault? Like, that's a little offensive coming from you,
Yeah, but it's just like, I get where she's trying to go with this, but her not being really licensed at all and like delivering or like book writing and stuff, it's just like, you don't really know what you're saying a lot of the time. You're just like saying what you feel,
Yeah.
And that's not how it should go.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally someone who posted a viral picture on Instagram and then decided she's going to help everyone with their life all of a sudden. And it's just, you can, I think a good example of someone who talks about body positivity but doesn't overtly tell you how to live your life. You know, they inspire without being very, you know, motivational without any qualifications, is Sierra Schulze on YouTube. She does a lot of body positive videos and all of that. And I think, you know, she definitely demonstrates that perfect balance, you know.
Is that the one that does makeup?
No, she does like a lot of clothing style videos about like how to wear clothing for different body types or be confident in your body.
I remember hearing it where she was looking at Pinterest photos of people like your quote unquote like stereotypical body beauty size, and she tries it on and makes it look pretty good with her body. Exactly. Good for her. And I love that. I think it's a good balance of, you know, being inspiring and accepting your body and showing, not telling. I think that's a really important aspect. If you have no qualification for something, don't tell someone how to live their life. Instead, show through how you're living your life, and people can be inspired by it and take some parts and leave others, you know? Totally.
And the worst part of all is I feel like sometimes when someone gives advice, it spreads, you know, people read that book and then all of a sudden they give that same advice to their friends, you know, like when my mom read The Outliers and she went on and on about practice and how important it is to spend hours doing something to become an expert, which was good. I love that book. But, you know, that can have a negative effect if you read the wrong books or you get the wrong information and all of a sudden you're telling your friends you're unhappy because of it's your fault, not completely. Maybe that you're in a bad marriage or that you're kind of, you know, started off in a bad relationship and still kind of have one and maybe poured a lot of your life and efforts into work to distract from a relationship that was struggling. Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Possible. So we're going to get into some of her videos on her YouTube channel, actually, that received like a lot of positivity. I went through a couple, and her most popular video has like the most comments saying like, oh wow, this is so inspiring. So let's look into that. We'll play the audio for those listening on Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever we're streaming on now. But here's the video for y'all. Oh, it's my Texas accent coming out.
I've never lived there.
I've been there like twice.
It sometimes creeps up on me.
Creeps up. Gets the best.
I watch Fixer Upper, and that's how, you know, I've attracted this accent.
All right, let's get into this. It's called Top Motivation Hacks for 2020 with Rachel Hollis.
I'm sweaty, I'm gross, and I got a medal and a banana.
Good for you. Wow. Bananas.
I post this thing in the Goal Getters community, and I ask everyone to tell me how they feel about motivation, where they struggle with motivation, and I'm reading all of these notes. And you guys tell me if this is something that you feel like. And
I love all of them are just nodding their head.
Well, as people who are watching this on YouTube can tell, I'm like that stereotypical overactive listener where I'm like nodding my head. Yeah.
These are a lot of overactive listeners. This lady in the back left. But she's just sitting there like, bruh.
Yeah. I also want to ask, like, what is motivation? Like, what does motivation mean? You know? Motivated to do what? Because I feel like it's really always a different thing, you know? Like, if you're really passionate about something, motivation to do something can be completely different than motivation to go to a job every day or motivation to, you know, wake up and feel energized and be present with your kids. Like, there's so many different types of motivation and, you know, so many different scenarios where you have to be motivated that there's no one answer to motivation because it's different depending on your situation and what you need and what you do.
Yeah. Life isn't always about eating bananas, Rachel Hollis. But as you see in this title, it's Top Motivation Hacks. So it's plural. So we're expecting a lot, like a big list in this 10-minute video, 10-minute, 13 minute video of hers.
Okay.
Let's get in.
Specifically, we're talking about motivation and mindset as it pertains to our health, okay? So here's some of the things that I hear. I'm asking you guys, and I'm gonna ask you at home. If this is you, I want you to be like, gosh, yes, I do have that.
I do have that. Do you?
No.
I heard things like, I start doing so well, I start eating right, or I start going to the gym, something happens, I fall off the wagon, and I feel like, screw it, I'm done. I fall completely off. Does that ever happen to anyone here, right? Okay, the other thing that I hear is...
So personal trainer and psychologist Rachel Hollis is going to tell us how to, continue going to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Awesome.
I can't even talk myself into starting. I don't even know how to motivate myself because I have this loop in my head telling me this is just the way it is, right? People talking about perfectionism, feeling like they have to do it perfectly or they don't even want to try, and so they're not motivated to attempt anything new because they know that they'll suck at it. Anyone here? Resonate? Okay. So
Who sucks? You suck? You suck?
I sometimes.
Well, that's not family friendly. Jeez, it's too late for this.
Yeah.
Just like, what a bunch of shade. You just threw so much shade. Who makes plans but doesn't do it? Who sucks? Anyone? Anyone? It's great.
So, we all are dealing with a lot of the same stuff. And what I was tripping out about when I was reading through these is literally, if I was coaching you guys one-on-one, I would give every single one of you the same tool. I went into Dave's office, you could ask him, I was tripping out. I was like, they all are talking about different things and the answer is the same. It's the same answer for everyone. I sound like a...
Is it?
The same answer for everyone?
Oh, no, it's not. I don't know. It's like fixing a flat tire that's similar than getting a brain transplant.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's the same tool. Just need a wrench.
Same tool. Yep. I mean, I think a lot about, Christianity, of course, as an outsider, or someone who's not completely knowledgeable in that. But, a lot of Christianity is like, the 10 Commandments, which you're living your life under and everything. And they're supposed to be kind of universal truths.
Totally.
And so I feel like she takes that concept and then applies it to motivation, where it's like there's these simple truths that you live your life by, or these hacks that are super simple that applies to everyone. And I don't know. I don't think it's that simple, but I don't know.
Maybe Rachel Hollis has the 2020 motivation. This
I'm
was
not an
filmed
expert.
in February. When did COVID break out?
March.
Okay, yeah, this is pre-COVID. I want to see
How that's
how you
affected.
can apply that now.
I sound a little bit like I'm gonna ask you guys to join a cult because I'm so
A
excited
cult,
about
you
this.
say?
And no, it's not something I'm gonna sell you. It's a flip in your perception about what it means to be motivated. So we're gonna change that today.
Whenever people...
That's great.
It's people who have to say, this isn't a cult, and I'm not going to sell you anything. And they're so adamant about that, and they have to put it out there before saying anything.
Well,
You have a hair spike, by the way. It's whenever people say that, you always have to wonder why they felt obligated to mention that in the first place.
It's like what we mentioned in the Gary Young video where like you said the bar with his whole like $2,000 cancer treatment program. Mm-hmm. He sets the bar so high with $2,000, but he downgrades it to $400 for a do it yourself medication.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a similar thing going on there. Where it's just like, I'm not selling you this. It's like, oh gosh, he was going to sell me this.
Yeah, but I always just find, like from the perspective of the person that's speaking, that feels compelled to say, I'm not selling you anything and this isn't a cult. Whenever you just feel the need to bring that up, it's always a little concerning to me because it's like, why was I even on your mind in the first place? Like, for example, if you're volunteering at like a homeless shelter, for example, like when a homeless person comes up to, receive a meal, you don't say, I'm not going to sell you anything. This isn't a cult.
But
you don't say that because people know what you're doing and what your intentions are.
Right.
You know, so the fact whenever people feel the need to say that, it always makes me like,
Oop.
yeah. Oof.
Oop. We'll see. I'll see if I'll give her a thumbs up or thumbs down.
But before we get into what is this magical answer, we've got to talk about two kinds of motivation, because I want to make sure I got this. These are the two kinds that I saw today. People were saying,
Of course, like before you see the big reveal, we have to get into something else first. They're looking at her like, bruh.
It feels like tactics that kind of con artists use,
Yeah.
where it's like, well, before we do this though, you have to, you know, and they reveal things. Like a lot of con artists, they'll have this like secret or this amazing thing that they're offering you, but before you have that, like, and they try and take you on a journey but keep you roped in through this. It just feels like those kind of similar tactics.
It's like Monty Python and the quest for the Holy Grail. Like they can't go straight to the Holy Grail. They have to do all these side quests.
Yeah.
Shrubbery.
they struggled to get motivated to start something. Anyone ever struggle to get motivated to start? Yep. The other thing was they struggle to stay
Anyone suck?
motivated to keep going when they're not seeing the results that they want to see. So those are the two kinds of motivation that our community was struggling with most, was how do I start and how do I keep going when I'm not seeing results? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me give you the headline. Let me give you the answer. And this is going to sound too simple, and you're going to be like, no, it is the answer. The answer to every single one of you who are struggling with feeling motivated in any area of your life is a habit.
From, as I'm pretty sure John Kennedy, is it from him?
John F. Kennedy?
Or is it wrong? Or is it Reagan? I'm blanking on who the quote is, but it's a president, a president.
A
who
dead
says,
one. A very dead one.
The answer is simple. It's not easy, but it's a simple answer. And
that sounds like a JFK type thing to say.
Yeah.
It is a habit. So here, let's break this down, because I know you're like, Rachel, you've talked about habits like 4 times this year. Yeah, there's a reason that I keep talking about this is the same thing. Okay, here is the definition of motivation.
Well, think about it this way. Like, so for example, if you are feeling really tired one day and you know that you have to wake up and be present with your kids, take them to school, then go to work, and maybe you work from home and you have to motivate yourself to do all this work. If it's all it is a habit, I feel like that then life becomes very monotonous.
Yeah.
You know, not very interesting, because you're just making a habit of just doing the same thing, going to take your kids to school. That's not refreshing. You're not present in each moment.
It's like I keep bringing up Gary Vee because I just see really similar character traits. It's like Gary Vee telling you, put your head down and do it. If you put your head down and do it, dude.
What if you're doing the wrong thing?
Yeah. And not only that, when you put your head down and do something, you're not going like look around and appreciate what's around you too.
Yeah.
You not appreciate the struggle.
Totally.
Appreciate the struggle.
And it also leaves out any nuance for creativity. Like habits, healthy habits, I would say they're good, but once again, I don't know.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
But yeah, that's not a healthy habit. Our late
night escapades.
Yes, good way of explaining it. But it's a habit and just put your head down and work. They leave out these nuances of creativity or continually brainstorming or evaluating your life or being reflective or taking time for yourself and acknowledging when you need a break in something, or it's if all it is a habit, it leaves out those aspects of life that I think are important to eliminate burnout. Because if you're doing the same thing every day and it's a habit that you're just doing this thing and you're not even thinking about why you're doing it or taking time for yourself, you're gonna burn out. And anyone can burn out, whether you're a mom, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a
Rachel Hollis.
Gary Vee entrepreneur, like whether you're Rachel Hollis, like whoever you are, you can always burn out.
The general desire or willingness of someone to do something. Let me say it again. The desire or willingness of someone to do something. The key word in this is desire. Desire. So when people come to me and they say, Rachel, how do you get motivated to work out? Rachel, how do you get motivated to eat healthy? Rachel, how do you get motivated to work on your business? How do you stay motivated to keep your head down in the business and try and make it grow into something when you're not seeing how? What you're asking me is, Rachel, how can I like to do the thing I don't currently like to do? The desire, like, oh, I want the desire to want to go to the gym. I want the desire to want to eat the kale. Hear me now. There are thousands upon thousands of companies who are trying to sell you.
Okay, but I do have to say really quickly, it's also about time. Like, that's something she doesn't factor into this entire motivation talk, is like, time is very important, and whether or not you have time to fit it all in, because at the end of the day you have priorities, and if you don't have a full-time nanny and you're working full-time and taking care of kids, you are not going to have time to go to the gym. You're just not. And then you have to fit it into your already very, very full schedule, and then you burn out from exhaustion or you don't go to the gym. And those are your two options. It's not just about motivation, but it's about what you can physically fit into a day as a human being.
Exactly.
You know?
The idea that they can give you the desire to do the thing you don't want to do. And I'm here to tell you, I can't give you the desire to eat the kale. What I can give you is a love and appreciation for the results when you eat the kale. Does that resonate? Like, I can't tell you, take this magic pill that, sorry, my accent comes out when I get fired up.
My accent comes out.
Why? I don't understand this need
It's
for
like,
the accent.
It's like when people go visit Europe or something, you know, or like go visit like some foreign country, they act like they're all like that country expert, you know, where they say something in a different language, and they're like, oh, sorry, that's just from my trip in Europe.
For some reason, it reminds me of, because we just finished watching The Office. For me, I think like the 4th time, for him the 2nd time. And it reminds me of Gabe from Tallahassee and how he says, ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. You know, which, I'm sorry if you're from Tallahassee, that's,
I don't even think, do they say that?
I don't, I mean,
okay,
of course they do.
Why? I mean, if you're from Tallahassee, if you guys say ciao, if y'all say ciao, comment that, please.
But
thanks for drinking most of
maybe
my
we
Red
should
Bull.
end our podcast with saying ciao. Just kidding. But you know, it's obviously, you know, you pick up things when you're there, but if you grew up in Bakersfield, I'm not sure how much of an accent you can suddenly pick up, but you know, is what it is.
So it seems to me that Rachel has a perfect personality for Hunbots, as people on the anti-MLM community, multi-level marketing community, call them. She's spoken at a lot of MLM conferences like DoTerra, Beachbody, Arbonne, and just other conferences like religious conferences and whatnot. But for her Beachbody video, her Beachbody and DoTerra conferences are pretty much the same thing. I watched both of them. They're an hour long each. I had to listen to her same speech twice. It was painful.
No.
But
if you think about it, that's a way to, because you know Gary Vee has said he makes $100,000 per conference, and I'm sure MLMs pay a very similar amount for these types of things. And if you just have to carbon copy a speech and just say the same thing,
it's
and make
$100,000
on each, I mean.
And she, like, around the same time, around like 20 minutes, she accidentally slips and says y'all or some Texan phrase, and she says, oh, excuse me, it's just my accent. And everyone starts laughing. It's so hilarious. I find it so funny.
I think that's the thing that bugs me the most about Rachel Hollis, is this whole like accent slip thing, because it just feels so fake to me, and like
it feels like being from Bakersfield.
Contrived.
It feels like being from Bakersfield, you don't really have like a personality. If you're from Southern California, you kind of have that like beach bum personality. If you're from Miami, Florida, you kind of have that like outgoing personality. You know, like these different big areas, you have a different kind of personality. You can tell if someone's from LA or New York. But if you're from Bakersfield, you don't really got much going on for you.
that's offensive to people who are from Bakersfield.
No, but
it more just means you don't have this like stereotypical persona that's often, you know, characterized with the place that you're from. So it's like I can see how maybe she would want to identify with that Texan Southern belle, you know, kind of charm and want to be like that. Yeah.
It just feels like she was just so eager to grasp onto something that she felt personal with. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think it also fits very well with her brand, you know, and so I think she knows that and it fits well with her audience probably too, but it just, you know, why be fake? I don't know. It just kind of makes me feel like
maybe it's not. It's just part of her persona, I guess. Fakeness.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going so her Beachbody and DoTerra conference videos are the same exact thing. I mean, not her conference videos. I watched the video. She's in a conference. Yeah. They're the same thing. She goes straight into like making fun of marriages and couples that post a lot on Instagram of how much they love their significant other and stuff. But honestly, if you guys like scroll through her Instagram page or like whatever page she's running now, like it's all about, I mean, of course not now, but like before it was all about like how much she loves her husband or how much she loves this or that, you know, but she goes straight into this opening with making fun of those people, you know, and of course she makes the crowd laugh and stuff and react to whatever she says, which is a little messed up because she literally posts the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, also you never know what's going on behind closed doors, all of that. People that post that they're happy may not be people that never post, might have the perfect marriage. I mean, we don't post super often.
I literally have no pictures on my Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, but it's also like, it's no one's place to judge how other people want to express their relationship, in my opinion. If you're annoyed by it, if I'm just being completely honest, I feel like that's kind of a personal issue. You know, nothing to do with people who are just posting about, you know, their relationship and stuff. That's their business. If it bothers you, unfollow or just hide their posts and you're good.
Totally, easy as that. But her next spiel, she goes on to asking the crowd, who came here to escape their children? And of course, the crowd goes wild. They're like, cheering and stuff. But she follows by telling the crowd, you need to live your life.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But the hypocrisy is MLMs themselves. It's one of the most common things that they push, that like you have to be with your children and like you need to do this business so that you can be home with your kids. And then all of a sudden at this conference, it's like, who came to escape their kids? Like, and all of a sudden it's like, it's okay to live your life. So it just feels like they're saying it's okay to live your life only if you're doing it for the MLM. But if you want to work a 9-to-5 job, if you want to do anything, you know, if you want to go out one night to maybe a bar or a club with friends, that's unacceptable. You need to be with your kids.
Pick your poison.
You know, it's only okay to leave your kids if you're going to an MLM conference. Nothing else.
Nope, just strictly MLM.
A job with a salary,
Beachbody is
9-to-5 with vacation time, unacceptable.
Can't do it.
Unacceptable. You are leaving your children. You know, that's just the hypocrisy I had to point out.
Good job. So in her Beachbody conference, she talks about being in a low and how the Christian faith, by the way, it's not a Christian conference. This is Beachbody here. Mm-hmm. But anyways.
It's interesting the assumption made about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she just automatically assumes. She's like, in her Beachbody and DoTerra conference, she goes into being in a low, you know? And she relates this to the Christian faith, talking about being in the valley. But she twists it in the most bizarre way. She's not talking about like being in a low in life at all. She refers to being
which, of course, if you're in a low in life, that's your fault.
It's all your fault.
If you're unhappy that's your fault.
Yeah.
But being in a low in Beachbody sales, however, which is what she flips it into.
Yeah.
That's not your fault. That is just being in the valley.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, she's like, oh, it's okay to be in the low. You're going to be in the low with your Beachbody sales.
Which, of course, everyone who is in Beachbody is going to be in the low, or 99%, because 99% of people in MLMs lose money. So it's so funny how that's kind of the core message, is like, if you're losing money, just keep going. It feels like this kind of, brainwashing event of like, hey, look at us, look at how great this is. Yeah, look at me, I'm an established figure, and I'm here to tell you that even though you're losing money in this, you got to keep pushing.
And so anyway, she encourages the audience to keep going and keep buying these Beachbody.
No.
She keeps encouraging the audience to keep going and keep buying into Beachbody, because you have to buy these products in order to be financially free. The magic buzzword right there.
Love that.
Because you signed up for it. So I don't know about you, but Beachbody is not a religious company at all. It's just so bizarre how she just relates like being a low to a Christian Bible verse. It's just like, come on, just like don't.
Yeah, it does feel really predatory, and I don't know why in my head I just have this picture of the MLM companies coming to her and being like, we want you to talk, and the main purpose is to encourage people who are struggling in sales, which is the majority of people in their company, to keep going and to keep investing. And that seems like it was kind of the purpose. And she's like, how can I relate this? Well, obviously her entire brand is intertwingled. What is that?
Twinkle little
it's
star.
Like, oh my gosh.
Intertwined
with Christianity. So, she's going to relate it to, that is what she knows, of course. So she is going to relate it to what she knows, which is Christianity. And that's fair. But it is also kind of manipulative, too, because this isn't Christianity and experiencing a low in your life in relation to your religion as well. It's not making money because a company is designed
because
for
of
you to
a business
fail.
scam.
Yeah.
There's
kind of a difference.
Yeah. But like, it's funny because even though she isn't selling these products, she's perpetuating just a dangerous mentality when it comes to participating in these MLMs. It's like, oh my gosh, Rachel Hollis, the 4.5 million bookseller for Christian books.
Listen to her.
Gotta listen to her. So when it comes to Rachel Hollis' speeches, all of her points are really contradictory. When you watch a lot of her videos and her messages, it just doesn't really hold any weight, But that's pretty much what I got from watching just hours of her conferences and motivational life hacks and stuff. It's really just contradictory, doesn't make sense, doesn't hold weight. You waste a lot of your time watching it, and it was painful.
Just kind of supposed to blindly motivate people who are participating in an MLM, but besides that, there's really no substance to it.
Yeah, but anyways, like later on, about like 45 minutes into her conference, she goes on to saying that when she picked her mom up from an airport one day, her mom was just like astonished because she saw a lady in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, and the mom was just like, oh, I can't believe she's just letting go of herself and this and that, because her mom is like really classy, I guess, like wearing like jewels and stuff, and like it's a different mentality. Some people dress up for an airport, some people like being comfortable for an airport.
People who wear heels in airports, are you superhuman?
That's a power move right there.
And why but also how, and how do you live? Who are you? I must know. I'm impressed, but I'm also astonished.
Wow. I think those are synonyms.
Slightly.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways, she like kind of scolds her mom. She's like, you think that's bad? You should be jealous of her. She talks about like not comparing yourself to other people, but she's saying that you should be jealous of the lady wearing an oversized tee and sweatpants. It just kind of...
It feels like when you take this idea of body positivity, acceptance, and relatability too far to where you're like, you should be wearing sweatpants, or you should be like, and because that's relatable. Well, people should express themselves however they want to. And if, I've talked about this, I think, on my Instagram story with my own channel, but I personally like dressing in a feminine way, wearing makeup when I do videos, because it makes me feel just a little bit extra, a little bit special, a little bit more confident when I go to film. And that's just who I am, and it's my authentic self. And, if I were to try and be relatable and wear sweatpants and, all of that, it just wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be who I really am. And so what's relatable about that? Is that true relatability? So we're not going to get too much into Rachel Hollis's divorce, because I just think personal issues like that are really not random YouTubers or podcasters' business that much, just because we really don't know what went on behind the scenes. But surprise, surprise, Rachel's relationship with her husband, who when they first started dating was flaky and flirted with others, did come to an end. They did get divorced. And if you look at a lot of her relationship advice in hindsight after that divorce, you can kind of start to see that a lot of it is really just projection. Like, always, what are some things that she would say about relationships?
She would talk about in her book about relationships, just like constantly just like letting stuff slide in some way, shape or form. I didn't really dive too much into what she had to say about relationships, but it was just really vague information that made it seem like let each other do whatever each other wants type of a situation.
Yeah. And I think that looking back on a lot of that kind of stuff, I think that was actually her kind of own therapeutic way of dealing with a relationship that maybe wasn't ideal in her mind, maybe even wasn't from the start, but maybe there were certain aspects that she was holding on to, so she was letting other stuff slide until it built up too much. But once again, I don't know. I'm not here to speculate, but I did want to note that, when people, because I know a lot of people have hated on her for what she said about relationships, and to me, all I can see is someone who's struggling internally and feels like they need to talk about it, but maybe is hiding a lot of their feelings and issues. And this is, in a way, an outlet for her to talk about it and kind of project and be like, ignore it. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm okay. So, that's just some 2 cents. But really quickly, we'll just briefly touch over another issue people seem to have with Rachel Hollis that I think Kiki Chanel covered really well in her Beachbody conference video. Highly recommend it. It's a great video where she brings up the issue of Rachel Hollis and plagiarism.
Plagiarism?
It is getting late. We can barely talk at this point. We're getting used to the longer format. Basically, blatantly has plagiarized a lot of people. So, for example, she's said things like, every year you close a new chapter in your story, please don't write the same one 75 times and call that a life. But of course...
Plagiarism.
Yeah, but of course you have to build habits. A little hypocrisy bit there. But anyways, that was plagiarized, and pretty much the exact thing was said by a tweet from Robin Sharma, a best-selling author and leadership expert. Another quote she plagiarized, "Don't you dare compare your beginning with someone else's middle," which is a quote from a lot of other people, but notably Tim Hiller, who wrote this in his book Strive, Life is Short, Pursue What Matters.
It's kind of in the title.
Which I think, funny enough, I think that also, to me at least personally, I think she's inspired by a lot of these leadership, motivational gurus, and kind of is wanting to become that herself. So there's a few things that she's plagiarized over the years and kind of copied and claimed they were her quote. And it's just that also contributes to this whole idea of Rachel Hollis and a lot of what she puts out being a facade that maybe she's not even putting up for other people, but that she might actually be putting up for herself as well. We also just kind of feel like a lot of her motivational videos just don't get very far. They don't, explain a ton, and, it's all very surface level, and that's really Rachel Hollis. I think, she doesn't...
Just keeps it on the top.
Yeah, she keeps things as surface as possible. And that's at the end of the day, the best way we can summarize it after an hour of podcasting about her.
That's about it. Just topsoil.
Yeah. So we're all good?
Good to go.
All right. So that is the podcast on Rachel Hollis. I hope it was informative. I hope you learned maybe some new information you didn't know before, or a different perspective on things. And I'd love to know your thoughts on Rachel Hollis down below, of course, in a very kind and positive way. We're not here to bash Rachel Hollis.
Rachel Hart?
I don't know why I want to say that.
Heartland?
Stop. And we're not here to bash her character in any way. We're just here to kind of have a constructive conversation over, people who have influence that might be using that influence in a wrong way. If you listened or watched last podcast all the way through, and this one as well, you are officially part of the Pineapple Pizza Gang.
Oh, we're sticking with that?
Actually, I don't think we'll stick with it too much, but comment below if you're part of the Pineapple Pizza Gang.
And comment too if you like the idea of pineapple pizza. I know it's kind of revolting to some people. I saw some comments that had a pukey face next to some pineapple pizza, but they still trudged through it. But if you want to stick with the pineapple pizza trend, comment below.
Yeah, let us know. Personally, I'm semi-indifferent. I can have pineapple pizza if I'm in the mood, and sometimes I'm just not.
It's
sometimes
a very
I want
particular mood,
a good... I personally love margarita pizza. That's my favorite. It's kind of a little bit lighter. It's nice, Yeah. And so anyways, we will catch you guys in the next one. Comment below if you have any ideas of things that we should cover. And adios.
Oh, also too, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend, all that fun stuff. Wherever you guys do, social media wise, do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yep.